Sawadee-kap. Hello and welcome to Daily Wisdom, Walking the Path with the Buddha. Today is our group learning program, and I'm going to be sharing with you the 5 hindrances. These are 5 obstructions or obstacles that are going to hinder you from getting to enlightenment. Up to this point, I've been teaching for 7 months in this program, going week by week in this book, each week on Sundays, helping you to understand the path to enlightenment and the foundational teachings that you need to make your way to enlightenment. And now at the very end of the program, I'm going to be sharing with you the 5 things that'll hinder you from experiencing that mental state that I've been teaching you how to attain all these number of months. Of course, we're going to start with our meditation first, but then afterwards, we're going to move into this talk on the 5 hindrances. I'm going to teach you the 7 Factors of Enlightenment, which are tools to help you eliminate the 5 hindrances. And then ultimately, I'm going to teach you what the 5 hindrances are and how to actually eliminate them, because these will block you or stop you from actually attaining enlightenment. So welcome to all of you, whether you're joining on Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or whether you're watching this on the replay. And if you'd like to join for the meditation, I'm going to start with the chanting. Then I'm going to come in with some guidance. There's going to be a period of time where it's just quiet. Then we're going to come out of the meditation with some more chanting. And that's where I'll start today's class. So welcome to all of you. And if you'd like to join along in the chants, you're more than welcome to. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Otang Mahakavanang Apivateyami Savakato Mahakavata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Sāvaka Saṅkho Sanghang Namami Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Bhagava Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakhato Rokavitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatava Manusanang Oto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. And out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมหาเกวาโอตังมหาเกวันนังอภิวาเตมิสวากขาโตมหาเกวัตตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหะคะวะโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมะคะวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิจาจารนังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดัมมาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังโอโตภาควาติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, welcome to all of you guys. Nice to see everyone here today. Welcome to our class. As I was mentioning at the beginning of our class, our topic today is the 5 hindrances. And I'm also going to help you to understand the 7 factors of enlightenment, because these are actually solutions to help you to remedy the 5 hindrances, as well as accomplish other things too. So I'm going to help you to understand the 7 factors of enlightenment. Oftentimes people think that these are to determine whether you are enlightened or you aren't enlightened. But in actuality, they're a tool to fine-tune the mind. So I'm going to help you to understand these so that then when we talk about the 5 hindrances, you'll know how to employ those in order to be able to help you with the 5 hindrances. As you guys might know, or maybe you're aware if you haven't been in the program the entire time, that I've been teaching for the last 7 months, helping students to understand how to get to enlightenment. And this is about the 8th or 9th iteration of this group learning program. And I'm going to be restarting it on the 1st of June. Next week on Sunday, we're going to do a getting to know the teacher where you guys can ask me any and all questions that you like about my personal life or any other things that you'd like to know. I'll be an open book to answer any and all questions that you guys have. That's going to be kind of the unofficial restart of the group learning program next Sunday. But then the official restart is going to be on June 1st. So you're welcome to attend all of these classes. But what I do in this group learning program is I help students to develop this understanding of enlightenment and how to attain enlightenment. What enlightenment is where the mind is peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy, where the mind no longer experiences any discontent feelings. By the time you get to enlightenment, you'll eliminate all your anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All these feelings and others are eliminated from the mind. And the way this is accomplished is that you're learning and practicing the teachings of the Buddha to be able to uproot certain pollutions in the mind. he discovered these 10 individual pollutions in the mind, and he figured out the tools and techniques of how to uproot them out of his own mind. And when he figured that out, then he shared that with other people so that then they could also experience this enlightened mental state. By uprooting those pollutions out of the mind, you'll experience focus, concentration, clarity, and deep memory because the mind is performing optimally and your mind is no longer polluted. Your personal and professional relationships will really be blossoming. They'll be at ease. You won't have bitterness and harshness and hostility in your mind anymore. So this is going to promote harmonious relationships where you're not bitter and harsh and hostile with others. You'll get to the point where your mind isn't even in a bad mood. It's physically impossible for the enlightened mind to experience a bad mood. And this is a permanent mental state that an individual is experiencing through training of the mind. There's no belief here in the teachings of the Buddha where you're believing a bunch of things and hoping something good happens when you die. Instead, you're learning, examining, you're investigating his teachings, you're reflecting on them to independently verify them, and then you're practicing them in order to train your mind and uproot these pollutions. So as you're doing this and as you're doing this work, there's certain obstacles or hindrances that you can experience along the way. And the Buddha brings these to your attention and gives you the remedies for them. Because if you meet with these obstacles or these obstructions, you're going to need to get them out of the way in order for you to be able to make your way to enlightenment. All of these 5 hindrances and all the work that you're doing on the path to enlightenment, it's internal within your own mind. So the Buddha's words on the 5 hindrances, here he's introducing them and he's talking about kind of like the basic way to kind of approach eliminating these hindrances. But in other parts of his teachings, he's actually teaching other aspects of the 5 hindrances. This isn't the only place where he talks about the 5 hindrances, but I'm going to share this with you so that you can have confidence that the Buddha actually taught these 5 hindrances and what the remedy of those are. And then I'm going to teach you them in detail and how to actually apply the certain solutions that he discovered and how to fix these. So these are the words of the Buddha where he's kind of introducing the 5 hindrances. He says, monks, there are these 5 hindrances. What 5? The hindrance of sensual desire, the hindrance of ill will, the hindrance of complacency, the hindrance of restlessness and worry, the hindrance of doubt. These are the 5 hindrances. This noble eightfold path is to be developed for direct knowledge or experience of these 5 hindrances, for the full understanding of them, for their complete destruction, for their abandoning. So here you can hear the Buddha, or you can see that the Buddha had taught that you need to uproot these out of the mind. You need to abandon and destroy these 5 hindrances. In this central teaching that he teaches, the Eightfold Path, you need to have that well underway. That's why at the very beginning of the group learning program, I spend 3 individual class sessions to go into the Eightfold Path in detail. So we're going to be doing that in June, where I'm going to be diving into detail with the Eightfold Path. And I've taught it many times. It's been recorded, so you can actually start learning it now if you'd like to. But you're going to need to commit this teaching to your memory. You're going to need to know the Eightfold Path inside and out, backwards and forwards, up, down, left, right, because you're not going to be able to practice it if you don't have it committed to memory. So in order to get any progress on the path to enlightenment, you need to be able to learn and practice the Eightfold Path. That is the path to enlightenment. That is your life practice, the Eightfold Path. It's 8 individual factors. So anything and everything that has to do with getting to enlightenment, in one way or another, you need to be practicing the Eightfold Path. So here, when the Buddha is introducing the 5 hindrances, he says, hey, it's the Eightfold Path that you need to learn in order to uproot these. But there's other tools that he used besides this Eightfold Path that's going to help you to uproot these 5 hindrances out of the mind. And that's where the 7 Factors of Enlightenment come in. So if someone has the Eightfold Path well underway, they're going to be reducing these 5 hindrances. But then there's things that go in and actually target them. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So before we do that, let me just kind of talk about the 5 hindrances from afar, that these are actually similar to the 10 fetters. The 10 fetters are the 10 individual pollutions that the Buddha is teaching you to uproot and eliminate out of the mind. And when you do, that's when the mind is actually enlightened. They're referred to as fetters because during the lifetime of the Buddha, if you were a criminal, they would attach a fetter to your ankle and it would keep you confined to a certain area, like an open field. This was a shackle, a chain, and a ball. Nowadays, we put prisoners in jail cells and prison cells, but during his lifetime, they would attach a fetter to your ankle. So that's why when he discovered these 10 pollutions, he referred to them as a fetter because it's keeping the mind trapped or confined or bound up, where it keeps experiencing anger and sadness and frustration over and over and over again. But when you uproot these 10 fetters, when you get free of them, it's just like a prisoner getting free of their fetter. Now they're liberated, they're free, they can roam about the world. And now the same thing is true as if you uproot these 10 fetters out of the mind, these 10 pollutions, the mind is free. It's no longer experiencing this discontentedness of anger and sadness and frustration and all these others. So it's through learning and practicing the Eightfold Path while eliminating the 10 fetters, which is going to help you to be able to get to enlightenment and experience the improvement to the condition of the mind. And now when you add in the 7 factors of enlightenment, this will help you to make your way further and further on the path and ultimately help you eliminate the 5 hindrances. If we think about a sculpture, like an artist is going to make a sculpture, say they have a raw piece of wood, like a big log, and they're going to make a nice fine figurine. Well, they're going to use different tools in this process. Maybe when they first get started, they're going to take this axe or this hatchet, and they're going to chuck off big chunks of wood in order to be able to kind of whittle this down to a certain degree where they can kind of work with it and it's manageable. When you're chucking off those big chunks of wood with the hatchet or the axe, in terms of you becoming a better and better human being on the path to enlightenment, that's what the Eightfold Path is. It's chucking off big chunks of wood. So you're chucking off wrong view and wrong intention, wrong speech, wrong action, wrong livelihood, wrong effort, wrong mindfulness, and wrong concentration, so that you practice the opposites, which are right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. So now as you chuck off those big chunks of wood, you got to switch kind of like to another tool in order to kind of bring in the eyelashes and the wrinkles around the eyes. You might bring in like a really sharp, maybe like a razor knife or a X-Acto knife or something like this, right? And this is going to help you to really do that fine tuning of the sculpture. Well, the same thing is true about the 7 factors of enlightenment. They're going to fine tune the mind. They're not going to determine whether you are enlightened or aren't enlightened. It's actually a tool to help you fine tune the mind after you've already been chucking off these big chunks of wood with the Eightfold Path. So I'm going to help you to understand what those are as a way to lead into the 5 hindrances. These 5 hindrances, you're going to see an overlap between them and the 10 fetters. 4 of the 5 hindrances are actually part of the 10 fetters. There's one of them that's not part of the 10 fetters, but 4 of them are actually part of the 10 fetters. And this is the way that the Buddha teaches. He has this layered approach where when he's talking about a certain topic or another, he will kind of group his teachings in a certain way. Like you'll see mindfulness show up in a lot of different parts of his teachings, or concentration or things like that. So it's the same thing with the 5 hindrances. If you're familiar with the 10 fetters, you're going to understand them because you have seen a bit of the 10 fetters. So just like the 3 universal truths, 4 noble truths, Eightfold Path, and 5 precepts are all interconnected, the 5 hindrances and the 10 fetters are interconnected as well. So whenever you have struggles or impediments or difficulties or anything like that on the path to enlightenment, it can help you to look at the 5 hindrances and look to see what the individual solutions are to those. Because if you're obstructed from making forward progress, if you're thinking that your practice is kind of bottoming out or plateauing, you might look at the 5 hindrances and figure out which one of these is blocking you or hindering you or obstructing you from making further progress. And when you can see that maybe 1 or 2 or 3 or whichever one it is in your mind, then you apply the antidote. This is where the Buddha sometimes gets the reputation of being like a doctor, that there's a certain symptom that you experience, and then there's a certain prescription that is applied. So if you are practicing these teachings, you can get to the point where you're seeing these symptoms in your mind, and you have this big tool belt, and you know that when this symptom is arising, then you apply this particular solution, and that's what's going to fix it. And now you gradually move your mind closer and closer to enlightenment. And that's what's going to help you create progress, is by getting rid of these 5 hindrances or these obstructions, these obstacles to your enlightenment. So now just to introduce you to the 7 factors of enlightenment as a way to lead into understanding the solutions for the five hindrances. These 7 factors of enlightenment, they're a tool to fine-tune the mind. They're not to determine whether you are enlightened or you're not enlightened. It's to help fine-tune your mind. And in order to be able to do that, you need to be practicing this first factor here, this mindfulness. This is the same mindfulness from the Eightfold Path. It just shows up here because it's part of the 7 factors of enlightenment. You wouldn't be able to practice and use the 7 factors of enlightenment as a tool to fine-tune the mind if you weren't practicing mindfulness. What mindfulness is awareness of mind, where you have awareness of what's going on in the mind. Oftentimes in the unenlightened state, when you're not aware of these teachings, we just kind of go through life without realizing what's going on in our mind. There might be anger, there might be frustration. You might have conceit where you're judging other people and looking down on them. You might have bitterness or hostility or dislike towards other people. These things can be arising, and if you don't have mindfulness, you're not even aware that they're occurring, and your mind just continues to stay wired that way. So the mindfulness or awareness of mind is helping you to be aware. And that meditation that we just did, the breathing mindfulness meditation, is helping you to develop that mindfulness. More specifically, that awareness of mind that you're developing is referred to as the 4 foundations of mindfulness. This is something that you're going to need to be aware of from the Eightfold Path, and we'll kind of use that towards the end to make sure you guys know what that is, because that's the real linchpin here. That's the real, special thing that you need to be doing at all times of your day in order to really move your mind to enlightenment. You're going to need this general awareness of the mind, but more specifically, you're going to need to practice the 4 foundations of mindfulness. So when you're practicing your mindfulness or your awareness of mind, and you notice that your mind is sluggish, or you notice that it's excited or overactive, these other factors are there to help you move your mind to the middle. Because as long as you leave your mind down here in the sluggish, dull, lethargic condition, your mind stays wired that way. Or if you leave your mind up here in the excited, overactive, restless state, your mind just stays wired that way. It stays firing that way. You need to bring your mind to the middle so that more and more it stays in the middle. So with your mindfulness or awareness of mind, whenever you see that your mind is sluggish or dull or lethargic, you would like to bring in the enlightenment factors of investigation, energy, and joy. This is what's going to move the mind out of that sluggish state. It's going to lift it up to the middle. Because when your mind is dull and complacent, the last thing you're thinking about is investigating the teachings of the Buddha, right? It's like, I don't want to do that meditation. I don't want to go to class. I don't want to read a book. I don't want to talk to the teacher. The mind's just complacent. Because what the enlightenment factor of investigation is where you have dedicated examination, exploration, or research or study of the teachings, where you have a keen interest in learning and growing and developing on the path, and you start investigating the teachings. That's going to be just the opposite of where their mind is dull and lethargic, because the mind just wants to sit around like very mundane, kind of sitting on the sofa, not really doing much for an extended period of time. We're not talking about just a few minutes or a few hours you need a break or a rest from something you've been doing in your day. We're talking about multiple hours and days where the mind is just sitting around feeling dull and complacent, not being interested to meditate and all these other things. So what you would like to do is apply the effort to investigate the teachings, where you're reading books, listening to podcasts, you're watching videos, you're coming to classes, you're talking with your teacher, you're meditating, you're doing these kinds of things. As you're investigating the teachings, you're going to find the answers to why your mind is plagued with these discontent feelings and why it's struggling in day-to-day life. And as you do, that's where the energy will spring up in the mind. There's this effort or determination or ambition, this motivation, this enthusiasm and vigor, this willingness to do something that the mind is going to have spring up in the mind, because now you're starting to uncover the very tools and techniques that you need in order to move your mind to a more peaceful and joyful mental state. As that energy is arising, then there's going to be this joy, this unconditioned gladness, this delightedness, this radiance, this brightness in the mind, this cheerfulness that exists in the mind, not based on any condition. It just exists in the mind. So this investigation, energy, and joy, you need to apply the effort to arise that in the mind and bring the mind to the middle, not allowing it to stay in that dull, complacent state. Because the longer it stays there, the harder it is to get it out. So you'd like to catch it as soon as possible. Then when you notice that your mind is overactive, when your mindfulness is there and you're noticing that the mind is overactive, restless, excited, then you like to bring in the tranquility, the concentration, and the equanimity. This is what's going to bring the mind to the middle, right? So this tranquility is this relaxed and steady, stable state, this stillness of mind. The concentration is the mental alertness, the attentiveness, the ability to give your focus to a single object or activity. This is the right concentration from the Eightfold Path, where you can be focused and concentrated at all times. The equanimity is the mental calmness and composure, the evenness of temper, especially in a difficult situation. So I'll kind of give you some examples here of how you can use this, right? Like say you're practicing your mindfulness, your awareness of mind, and let's just say you get a phone call that your mom has been in a terrible car accident and she's being rushed to the hospital in the back of an ambulance. Well, if you didn't know these teachings, you might just grab your car keys, jump in the car, bolt across town to try to hurry up and get to the hospital, and you might even get into a car accident yourself. And at the very least, you're going to show up at the hospital all frazzled and not being able to help your mom. But if you understand these teachings and you're practicing mindfulness, when you get that phone call and you notice that, whoa, the mind is starting to go to this overactivity where, it's kind of uncalm, well, then you can bring in the tranquility, the relaxed, the stillness of mind, the stability of mind. You can bring in the concentration and focus, and you can bring in the equanimity, the calmness and composure, because the last thing you're interested in doing is bolting across town, because that's not going to help mom, right? If you show up to the hospital with your mind all frazzled or you were in an accident yourself, you can't help mom. But you can think to yourself, mom's in the back of an ambulance. That's the very best place for her. She's with emergency medical technicians. She's about to show up to a hospital with sophisticated equipment, doctors and nurses. Let me just make my way calmly to the hospital so that when I get there, I can talk to the doctors and nurses, find out what's going on, and then I can make some decisions to help her. So now you just calmly make your way to the hospital, because you rushing across town isn't going to help anything at all. That's not going to help mom at all. That's not going to do anything for her. But then also, if you're noticing that you're dull or lethargic or complacent, you've been sitting around, you really don't feel like moving your life forward. Maybe you're having difficulties finding a job, or maybe you feel dull and lethargic and mundane in your current work and activities in your personal life. That's where you apply investigation to investigate the teaching, start reading the Buddhist teaching, start attending classes, start to meditate, start to do these things that you need in order to investigate the teachings, because that's the answers that's going to help you. Then you're going to need to apply this energy to lift up the mind, and then this joy is going to spring up in the mind where there's this unconditioned gladness for no reason at all. It's just because the pollutions are out of the mind, and now the joy can start coming through more and more. It's kind of like if there's the sun and the clouds are in front of it and you start peeling away the clouds, the sun's going to start shining through. So that's the case. When you start investigating the teachings of the Buddha, you start applying energy to be able to implement those teachings. Now more and more joy can spring up in the mind. So I'm going to pause here and see what questions you guys have before we move into the 5 hindrances. If there's anything you guys would like to ask about the 7 factors of enlightenment, you can let me know. Remember, the mindfulness is there to be aware of the mind, and then the investigation, energy, and joy uplifts the mind out of the sluggish condition, and the tranquility, concentration, equanimity brings it out of the overactive, restless state. If you would like to ask questions, you can put this into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom in the comment section, or in Zoom, you can electronically raise your hand, unmute your microphone, and ask any questions that you like. So Leo has a question here in Zoom. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, David. I have a question about meditation. It's a little bit about concentration in this case. That I realized again when I do meditation. What I'm choosing to do is having my concentration or attention on the sound of the in and out breath. Right, that's what the teaching. We can do either the sound, pay the attention to the sound, or to the sensations. So I choose the sound for many months now. So what I realized, if I'm looking at the sound of the breath, Yeah, that's often that I realize, or I'm not sure if I really pay attention to the sound of the in and out breath. It seems more like that my attention is somehow on the breath, and then comes a thought, or I'm indulging in some longer thought, and I realize it, and I somehow come back to the breath. But I'm not sure if I'm really paying attention to the sound. And sometimes I realize, oh, what I'm trying to do is paying attention to the sound of the in and out breath. And then I'm doing it. But most of the time, it's just like, thoughts, I realize it, so mindfulness, come back to the breath, somehow to the breath. But right away, I'm back in thoughts, I realize it, come back to the breath. So I see that the mindfulness is trained here, but I'm not sure if I'm training my concentration correctly. So yeah, maybe I'm doing something, maybe I should pay more attention to this problem. What do you think about that?
What are you expecting to occur during this time frame?
I'm expecting, what is important is to learn mindfulness, right? In this case, in go of the thoughts and so on. That's what I'm doing, but also cultivating concentration, right? So in case, having the focus on the sound or the sensation. Mm-hmm. But it seems that I'm not having this focus on the sound. You understand what I mean?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but what I was asking you is, what are you expecting? Because I'm not hearing any problem. What I'm just hearing is that you just need to keep practicing. That if you're focused on the breath, and that when it's moving off the breath, you're noticing that, and you're bringing your mind back to the breath, then you're doing the meditation. There's not a problem there. That you're not going to be able to focus on the breath the entire time. You will have thoughts during your meditation. So I'm not hearing any issues. It's just that it sounds like you have a certain expectation of how things should be, and they're not that way. So you think that there's a problem. But what you're describing to me is meditation. You're focused on the breath. Whenever the mind moves off the breath, you're bringing it back. And that's what you would like to keep doing over and over and over again.
Okay. I was just unsure if I'm doing it incorrectly, because it's either focusing on the sound or on the sensation. And I'm not sure if I'm doing any of this kind of thing. It doesn't matter. Is it just focusing on the breath? And if it's going away, come back to the breath. And this is just a help to focus on the sound, or it's just more a help, a guidance. I'm not sure if I should take more effort to try to focus really on the sound. Have this in mind. Hey, you're here to train your concentration too, so you should focus on the sound in and out. Or would you say, no? I think, yeah.
Yeah, what I teach, Leo, is to focus on the breath. And whenever the mind moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath. That's what you need to do. And your mind is going to be off the breath sometimes. And that's what you're describing, that it's off the breath sometimes. So whenever you notice that, just cut it off, let it go, and bring the mind back to the breath.
Okay. What is the concentration part here? It's just focusing on the breath, right? Is it a difference if I'm focusing on the sound of the breath, or on the sensation of the breath, if I'm just focusing on the breath? Is there any difference in that?
No, it's the same thing. The breath, when I say focus on the breath, it's either the sound or the sensation of air moving over the skin, because the breath is the present moment. And your mind's going to want to be in the past, it's going to want to be in the future, and you're yanking it back to be in the present moment so that it doesn't keep wandering like that. But ultimately, even when you're enlightened, your mind's going to move off the breath occasionally. You're not going to just stay on the breath the entire meditation.
Okay. So what I also realized, it seems for me that I should maybe pay more attention to concentration, because singleness of mind is having the attention to whatever I'm doing, right? Yeah, so...
Yeah, I wouldn't overcomplicate it, Leo. Is that just sit down or stand or lie or whatever you're going to do, focus on the breath. Whenever the mind moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath. And then in your day-to-day life, in terms of cultivating concentration from the Eightfold Path, you practice singleness of mind, where you're just doing one thing at a time.
And okay, doing one thing at a time and having the attention to whatever I'm doing, right?
Yes.
It seems like that in the past, like before I came to these teachings, like 4 or 5 years ago, where I also did some kind of these things, there was some teaching like where said, take something you do in your daily life and pay attention to that. For example, washing dishes, or if you take a shower, put your attention to taking a shower. And this was somehow helpful for me, and I had or somehow, if I look back at this, it seems that I was paying more attention to this kind of singleness of mind, like paying attention to whatever I'm doing. Is that something I can cultivate again, like choosing some activity like taking a shower or washing dishes and do it like really paying attention to that how I do it and so on? Would you say this is something I could do?
That's what you should be doing for every activity. It's not just picking one activity and doing it, but every activity you're doing, you're practicing singleness of mind. So if you're washing dishes, you just focus on washing the dishes. If your mind wanders, you cut that off and bring it back. If you're taking a shower, then you're taking a shower and you're focused on that. And if your mind wanders, you cut that off and bring it back. So you're doing that in all your activities. If you're driving a car, you focus on driving the car. So you just do one thing at a time. That's what's going to develop your concentration in addition to the meditation.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, let me just check and see if we have any more questions anywhere. All right, so now let's move into discussing the 5 hindrances. These are the obstructions, or these are the things that are going to block you or hinder you from being able to make your way to enlightenment. The first one is referred to as sensual desire. All throughout this program, we've been talking about craving, desire, attachment, this wants and expectation, this longing, yearning. When we talk about it kind of in layman's terms, we use those terms: craving, desire, attachment, wants, expectation, grasping, clinging, holding. But when we talk about it as a pollution of the mind, it's sensual desire. This is what the mind is doing when it has craving, desire, attachment. That the mind is wanting permanently agreeable contact through the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, the body, and the mind itself. That as the mind is having this central desire, it's longing, yearning through these senses, wanting permanently agreeable contact. And if you get what you want, then the mind experiences pleasant feelings like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. But if you don't get what you want, you have disagreeable contact coming through these sense spaces, then the mind's going to experience painful feelings like anger, sadness, frustration, stress, anxiety, guilt, shame, fear, things like this. So then there's those neither painful nor pleasant feelings. So the mind, with its central desire, it's going to see any particular contact as either agreeable or disagreeable. And it longs and yearns for everything to be agreeable and comfortable. So for example, if you're in a car and you're at a stoplight and you hear a sound through the ears of the music of the person next to you, and that's the music that you typically listen to, and you're like, all right, yeah, that's my jam. Let's go. Come on. Party, 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 right? You're like so excited, bopping around in your car because you hear that person's music and that's your favorite type of music. Well, now with those pleasant feelings, that excitement, you pull up to the next traffic light and somebody else pulls up to you with some different type of music and you don't like this music. And now you hear that disagreeable sound coming through the ear and now you're frustrated or agitated or annoyed. That frustration or agitation isn't coming from the person. It's not coming from the music. It's coming from your sensual desire. It's coming from the longing, yearning, and wanting things to be permanently agreeable, that the mind sees things as either agreeable or disagreeable when you're having contact through any of these senses. Another example might be, say you're walking down the street and you smell some flowers coming out of a flower shop. And it's like, whoa, that is such a nice odor coming into the nose. It's agreeable to you. Wow, it smells so great. But then you walk a few more steps and you smell the sewer. And now you get a whiff of the sewer. It's like, oh, you're repulsed by that because that's disagreeable to the mind. And now you experience frustration or agitation. Or maybe something through the eyes, like a physical form. Maybe you're walking down the street, you see a little child holding their parent's hand, and you're like, oh, that's so beautiful. Look at the child holding their parent's hand. Oh, that's so lovely. Oh, you might really enjoy seeing that. But now with that excitement, you turn the corner and you see a parent slap their child across the face. Right? And now maybe you get frustrated or agitated because you see that physical form of the slap and you see that as disagreeable. Now, we're not talking about what's wise or unwise here because, in my opinion, it's unwise to slap anybody, including a child, right? But what we're talking about is we're talking about what's causing these discontent feelings. What's causing the mind to have these conditioned pleasant feelings where it's happy and excited? What's causing these painful feelings like anger and sadness and frustration? It's the central desire. The mind's longing, yearning through the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, the body, and the mind itself, wanting permanently agreeable contact. We can go through all of these and give you examples if you like. But let me talk about the mind a little bit because sometimes people have challenges with this one. Say like in the present moment, you're thinking about something that happened in the past, something very pleasurable that you really enjoyed, maybe like a special dinner, or maybe there was a certain event that you went to and you're like so excited just to think about that particular thing. Well, there hasn't been any contact through the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, or the body. It's just the mind itself thinking about the past. And now you get all excited just thinking about that thing. Well, the same thing can happen with the painful feelings, that your mind, not having had any contact through the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, or the body, can be thinking about a painful situation that occurred. Maybe you were physically abused. Maybe you were sexually abused. Maybe you got fired from a job. Maybe a boyfriend or girlfriend broke up with you. And now you're thinking about that in the past. Well, in the present moment, you're forming feelings based on the past because you're seeing that as disagreeable. And your central desire wants permanently agreeable contact. And when you have permanently agreeable contact, or when you have agreeable contact, the mind experiences pleasant feelings. But the challenge with that is those feelings arise, they change, and they fade away. They are not permanent because they're based on an impermanent situation. So if you get so excited when you hear that music at the stoplight, that music is not permanent. So now when you hear this other type of music, your mind ends up in this anger and the sadness and frustration because you live in an impermanent world. Things are constantly changing around you. And as soon as you allow your mind to form a conditioned feeling based on some object, that object is impermanent. So that means your feeling is impermanent. So if you allow your mind to get so happy and excited when your bank account balance is up here, it's only a matter of time before that changes and it goes down, and now you're angry or frustrated. Or if you see through your eyes that it's sunny outside and you get so excited, it's only a matter of time before it rains or it snows or it sleets or a hurricane or typhoon or something like this, and now you're frustrated or agitated or annoyed or angry, right? So this central desire is motivating the mind to long and yearn through its senses, wanting permanently agreeable contact. And it can only be happy if it gets agreeable contact. So it's kind of like the mind has all these conditions. It's like if this condition is met and this condition is met and this condition is met and this condition is met, then I will be happy. And when you're doing this, the amount of happiness that you can have becomes less and less and less and less and less, right? If my mom does this, if my brothers and sisters do this, if my boss does this, if the weather's this, if my bank account is this, if I buy this new car, if I get this new house, my, blah, 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 all the way down, then I will be happy. And the more that your list is long like this, the less and less and less and less happiness that you have, because the conditions that need to be true in order for you to experience happiness get longer and longer and longer. So this central desire is plaguing the mind from experiencing the permanent peace and the permanent joy. This is a hindrance to your enlightenment. And with your central desire, there might be certain things that you hold on to that is going to obstruct you from getting to enlightenment. Like let's just say there's a special pillow that you have. And oh my goodness, maybe it's so soft, it's so comfortable, and you can't imagine sleeping without this, and you just hold on to this pillow, and you're disinterested in choosing to set that aside for a month or two or three, training your mind not to sleep with that and to eliminate this central desire and be able to sleep and be comfortable with any pillow whatsoever. Maybe you're disinterested in setting that pillow aside. Maybe it's your favorite pillow that you've had since you were a child. Or maybe there's a certain glass of wine or a beer or something like this that you have this central desire through your tongue that you really like that taste and you can't even fathom never drinking that particular drink again. And now the mind holds on to that and you're happy when you have it, but you're frustrated and sad when you don't have it. So this central desire will hinder you from being able to get to the permanent peace and permanent joy. So the Buddha is teaching you to abandon this central desire, to eradicate it, where you can pursue things in life through wise decision making, where you're not chasing this unquenchable thirst that the mind has with its central desire. So you're going to need to eliminate craving, desire, attachment, this longing, yearning, this wanting things to be permanently pleasing, understanding the universal truth of impermanence. And the thing that's targeting this is the breathing mindfulness meditation and the generosity. The entire Eightfold Path needs to be practiced in order to understand and eliminate the craving, desire, attachment. So that's why the Buddha talks about the Eightfold Path as a remedy for these five hindrances. But it's the breathing mindfulness meditation and generosity that's really targeting it. Because with central desire in the mind, it's going to hold on and it's going to not be comfortable to let go. If you think back to that boyfriend or girlfriend that you had, when you guys were first together, you were so happy or excited. But then when you guys broke up, it was really hard for you maybe to let go. And maybe you were sad or frustrated or angry for a period of time. Maybe you were missing this person. Maybe you felt lonely or bored. It's not your care or your love that was doing that. That was the central desire. The mind was holding on to this relationship and holding on to this person. So the breathing mindfulness meditation is training your mind to let go, let go, let go. So what Leo was just talking about, there's no problem in what he was saying is that when his mind was on the breath, it was moving off the breath and then he needed to let go, right? And now you bring your mind back. But the mind doesn't want to let go, right? The mind doesn't want to focus on the breath. It wants to be all over the place. But more and more you refine your mind to focus on the breath. And when it moves off the breath, you notice that. That's developing your mindfulness. And then you cut that off and let it go and bring the mind back to the breath. So that's training your mind to let go. So the goal of this meditation isn't to eliminate your thoughts. The goal is to notice your thoughts sooner and sooner and let them go easier and easier. And in doing so, you will eliminate craving, desire, attachment. And you will develop your mindfulness and your concentration that you can apply those wholesome qualities in your day-to-day life. So you're going to need to build up your practice to 2 or 3 sessions per day for about 30 minutes. That's what you would like to build up to. And it can take you 6 months, a year, even 2 years to build up to that. So take your time. You're not in a rush. You're not in a competition with anybody. It's your own journey to enlightenment. So gradually building up your breathing mindfulness meditation will slowly wear away this craving, desire, attachment. And then you're going to need to practice generosity, where you're giving and sharing more than is strictly required in any given situation without any expectation of anything in return. But you even need to do this with no expectation. You need to do this from the middle way, where you're not overextending yourself. Because if you're sharing your time, effort, energy, and resources without any expectation of anything in return, if you share too much, you wouldn't have the basic needs that you have to survive taken care of. But if you never shared, your mind's going to be quite selfish, because that's what central desire is going to do to you, that you're going to want to hoard things. My clothes, my money, my jewelry, my food. The mind hoards stuff. It's almost like an animal, because the mind wants things to be permanently agreeable. And it feels like the more of this stuff that I have, the more I'll feel better, right? But we already understand that it's not material possessions that lead to happiness. Oftentimes people think it's being wealthy and rich or being famous, a celebrity. Well, if this was true, that money and fame leads to happiness, then there would never be a rich, famous person that commits suicide. But that's not what we see. We see that rich, famous people commit suicide because they're not happy. So they're experiencing painful feelings and they kill themselves, which I don't recommend to anybody. But if money and wealth and fame and fortune led to happiness, then we would never see anybody who's rich and wealthy and famous commit suicide, because they would be having just the most wonderful life. But none of these external things are actually going to lead to your happiness. But the mind's lack of wisdom will think that it will. So it'll hoard these things. So that's why by sharing with the people around you and practicing generosity, this will train your mind to let go. But you need to do this without any expectation of anything in return. Because if you're standing there holding the door, helping somebody to go into the store, and they don't say thank you, you will be frustrated or agitated or annoyed because your mind is craving this thank you. So when you're practicing generosity, you need to get rid of your central desire and have no expectation, not even a thank you. So your generosity is going to train your mind to let go. So if you take your clothes out of the dryer and you see they're ripped and you see your mind gets frustrated or agitated, that's because of your central desire. Your mind's holding on to these clothes, wanting them to be permanent. And now when you see they're ripped, that's where you're like, I should probably give away some of my clothing, right? So now you start giving away some of your clothing, and this is going to help your mind to let go. Or if you're noticing that you're hoarding your money and it's like mine, well, you'd like to start to share this with other people, right? And remember, you need to do this from the middle way. And the thing with generosity and with meditation as well, frequency is actually more important. That you would like to frequently be doing meditation 2 or 3 times a day, and you would like to be practicing generosity frequently throughout your day. This is a daily practice of generosity. So if you were going to give $500 to an orphanage once a year, that's not going to have the same impact as if you gave them $1 a day, because your mind's having to let go and let go and let go and let go and let go, right? So you would like to be frequently finding ways to practice generosity, understanding the only goal with generosity is to enhance the quality of your mind. You're not wanting or expecting anything from other people. You're just giving and sharing without any expectation of anything in return. And the breathing, mindfulness, meditation, and generosity is going to target this and train your mind to let go. And then all the while, throughout your day, you're practicing mindfulness to guard these doorways. The Buddha refers to these 6 sense bases as the doorways to discontentedness. Because anytime your mind is experiencing anger or frustration or sadness or any of these other discontent feelings, it's because something came through your doorway. Either your eyes, ears, nose, the tongue, the body, or the mind itself, thinking about the past or the future. There's going to be some kind of discontentedness if there's craving, desire, attachment, if there's central desire. So you're going to need to guard your mind, that when you're going about your day, you need to be observant of your mind with your mindfulness. The guard of your mind is mindfulness. You'll see the Buddha talk about this in his teachings. Whenever he talks about guarding the mind, he's talking about practicing awareness of mind or mindfulness. So as I mentioned, with this central desire, if the mind gets what it wants, it's going to get pleasant feelings like happiness, excitement, or elation. If it doesn't get what it wants, it's going to get painful feelings. And one of the things that can arise is the anger or the ill will. This is the anger, the hatred, the hostility, the bitterness, the aggression, the resentment, frustration, the irritation, annoyance, even dislike. If you dislike somebody else, it's not coming from them. It's actually coming from your own mind, that your mind has certain expectations. There are certain things that you want from this person. You expect them to be a certain way. And if they meet your expectations, you like them because they're doing things your way. But if they're not meeting your expectations, then you might dislike them. And this is where the anger and hatred and bitterness comes in. This is where the mind becomes unskillful. And it's all rooted in this central desire, that as long as this central desire is there, it's going to get happy or it's going to get those painful feelings. And now when this ill will is arising, you will either push people away or you'll push the situation away. You might have done this with your friends or family, push people out of your life, but you can see that that doesn't solve the problem because you still get angry, you still get frustrated. Or you might be bitter and harsh and hostile through your intentions, speech, and actions. It's almost like an animal growling and roaring, trying to fear this individual into doing things your way. Because what the mind's doing is it's trying to get its central desires fulfilled. And it thinks if I convince this person to do things my way through fear, if I'm bitter and harsh and hostile with them, now they'll do things my way. And then I get my central desires fulfilled. And now the mind thinks, I got my pleasant feelings because people are doing things my way, right? But this is just going to drive people away from you because they're going to feel controlled, like you're controlling them and you're trying to force them to do things through your hostility and bitterness. And if the mind's not pushing people away, if it's not being bitter, harsh, and hostile to people, then the third thing it might do when this ill will is arising is it might put your expectations on people and try to control them and force them to do things your way. And people might even be doing this to you too, right? So this is rooted in the mind's central desire, that this ill will is arising. And as long as this ill will is in the mind, it will hinder you. It will obstruct you from getting to enlightenment, because by the time you get to enlightenment, you will have love and kindness for every single being. That's probably challenging for you right now. There's probably certain family members or friends or coworkers or neighbors or something like this that you just don't kind of get along with them, right? You're kind of like, just don't like them, right? Because the mind has this central desire. And now this ill will is coming in and hindering you from being able to have harmonious relationships with everyone around you. So the way that you get rid of this ill will is you practice loving kindness meditation, and you go out into the world and you practice loving kindness in your day-to-day life through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. The loving kindness meditation is essentially rewiring your mind to be loving and kind in all situations. By the time you get to enlightenment, you will have love for all beings because you don't have expectations of people to be a certain way. And you can have love and kindness with everyone. You can be polite, kind, friendly, and respectful to every single person. So the way you might think about this loving kindness meditation is it's like filling up your gas tank with love and kindness. And then you go out into the world and you practice that through your intention, speech, and actions. You're walking down the street, you just smile at someone and they may not smile back to you, right? And that's okay. You're not smiling at them because you want something back from them. You're just smiling because you're joyful and you'd like to have loving kindness, right? You're going into the store, you say, hello, ma'am, how are you? Or you go up to the cashier to pay. Hello, how's your day today, right? You're being loving and kind through your intention, speech, and actions. You're never interested in being bitter and harsh and hostile with anyone whatsoever. Wherever you have a difficult relationship, there's things you're going to need to do in order to improve that. There are certain relationships you have right now that you're going to need to walk away from and realize that, hey, there's too much bitterness here. There's too much hostility. You're not committed to the relationship and you're just maybe interested in moving on from the relationship. There's other people that you're more committed to that you might need to kind of step away, work on your own mind, and then you can be better in that relationship. Or then there's the third one, which is there's new people that you haven't even met yet. That from now to the end of your life, you're going to meet new people. And if you're only ever loving and kind with those people, that's what you'll experience coming back to you. So you might have people in your life right now where there's some bitterness and harshness and hostility. And typically what we do with our lack of wisdom is we want them to change. I remember growing up, I had all these expectations from my mom. I had all this central desire, wanting her to be a certain way. And I kept wanting her to change my whole life, but she never did. In terms of during that period of time, right? So I just kept going around being angry and bitter and harsh and hostile. And it was only a matter of time that fireworks would go off when we were together. But what you need to do is you need to remove this hostility. You need to remove this bitterness. You need to remove this aggression and this resentment out of your mind. Then you can be loving and kind in your relationships with the people around you. So this loving kindness meditation and practicing loving kindness in your day-to-day life through your intention, speech, and actions is what will help you with that. And I've taught all these things previously in this program. Then the third hindrance that's going to obstruct you from being able to get to enlightenment is complacency. This is the dullness, the lethargic condition where there's lack of motivation, that the mind is just feeling mundane and dull. Some people refer to this as sloth and torpor. If you see a really old translation of the teachings of the Buddha, they will refer to it as sloth and torpor. But a better way to think about that is complacency, where the mind just isn't interested in doing the work to be able to get to enlightenment. Because there's the body and there's the mind. And the combination of these things we refer to as a person. The person might be like, yeah, I would like to get to enlightenment. I'd like to get to this peace and joy. I'd like to get to these harmonious relationships. I'd like to get to the focus and the concentration and the clarity. And the mind's like, we're not doing that. That's too much work. No, we're not going to do that. We're just going to sit right here and we're going to be in the darkness. And the person's like, nah, man, no. We got to do this work. And the mind's like, no, sorry, we're not doing that. And that's where the dullness and the lethargic and the lack of motivation, the lack of a willingness to do something comes in. That the mind is disinterested in doing this work because this work is not easy, but it's not difficult either. But there will be challenges and certain struggles along the way. And when you're meeting those struggles, because of the mind's central desire and it wants things to be permanently comfortable, when you're meeting with those uncomfortable things, the mind wants to run away from it. It wants to run in the opposite direction. And what the Buddha teaches you is don't shrink back from the struggle. If you run away from the struggle, if you run away from the challenge, you're just going to ensure that that's happening again. Because the only reason why you're struggling and having a challenge is because the mind is lacking wisdom, that it has this central desire, it's holding on to things, and it doesn't want to do this work. So when your mind's trying to run in the opposite direction, it's trying to be complacent and dull and lethargic, you're going to need to turn around and walk towards the problem in order to cultivate wisdom. Because if you run away from this, you're just going to ensure that it's going to happen over and over and over again. So if you allow your mind to be complacent, where you're not willing to do the work, then it's going to continue to have this lack of wisdom. It's going to continue to have sensual desire. It's going to continue to struggle and have difficulties. So wherever you see your mind's complacent, whether it's dull and unmotivated, lacking ambition and enthusiasm, you would like to bring in the enlightenment factors of investigation, where you're investigating the teachings. That's what you're doing right now. If you're listening to this actively with active ears, with eager ears, you're investigating the teachings because you're listening and you're trying to understand the teachings. That's investigation of the teachings. You're examining them. You're studying them. Then as you're doing that, then there's this energy that rises up in the mind that you start noticing that you're starting to find the answers to the very challenges and struggles that you've been having all throughout your life. That there's this initiative and willingness to do something starts to spring up in the mind. And then there's this joy, this unconditioned gladness that starts to arise in the mind. So the way complacency works is the longer you leave your mind in the complacency, the harder it is to get it out. So that's why you'd like to really be on top of this with your mindfulness. That if you're noticing that you typically read, maybe every day or every other day or every third day you're reading the book, and maybe you're meditating every day, and you're noticing it's been like 2 or 3 days without meditating, jump on that. Don't allow your mind to be complacent. Or you've gone like an entire week or two without reading and really spending time to attend classes and stuff. Maybe it's been 3, 4, 5 weeks that you haven't been attending classes. Jump on that. Because the longer you allow your mind to stay in the complacency, the harder it is to get it out of that. So these are the first 3 of the 5 hindrances. I'm going to pause here and see if you guys have any questions about the 5 hindrances. If we can keep our questions related to this would be great. So remember, you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, and I'll be able to see that in the comment section, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. So it looks like either Ted or Kristen has a question. If you guys would like to go ahead, guys.
Hi, thank you, Teacher David. My question's about, it's about sensual desire, which for me has kind of been something I'm working on. And I understand that I have to protect the gateways of the mind, right? So when a feeling is starting to develop in the body, a sensation, I stop that, cut it off, let it go so it doesn't turn into an actual feeling. And I understand that, but I'm a little unclear on sort of, I think I'm starting to get it, but the difference between like the mental objects and the deep-rooted containers in the mind.
Okay.
So I was hoping maybe you could kind of just...
Sure.
Talk about that a little.
So the mental objects, I refer to them as a deeply rooted container in the mind. So that's all the same thing. What a mental object is, when we're talking about the 4 foundations of mindfulness, is the 10 fetters, the pollutions. So if you're noticing the bodily sensations, which is the tingling in the body rising up towards the head, the tightening of the chest, tightening of the throat, heat in the face, pressure in the skull, that's the bodily sensations. That's the early warning system that's alerting you you're about to experience anger, for example. Then after that, if you don't cut it off and let it go there, it's going to affect the condition, or it's going to cause a feeling. It's going to form a feeling in the mind. So now it moves from the bodily sensations to a feeling. Now the mind is actually angry. The feeling just entered the mind, right? Well, then if you allow that to persist, then it's going to affect the condition of your mind. This is where you've been grumpy for like a few days or a week or two, or you're agitated or irritated. That's the condition of the mind. You need to be aware of the condition of your mind. What the mental object is in this example is ill will. And you need to be able to know with your mind, that's ill will. That's hatred. That's anger. That's what that is. That's the mental object. That mental object has arisen in the mind. There's multiple mental objects. All those 10 fetters are all mental objects. So you would like to be aware of all of those. So they're deeply rooted containers in the mind that most of them didn't exist when we were born. That, for example, we weren't angry and hateful when we were born. We developed that over time. We didn't go into the nursery at the hospital being angry and hateful. But because of our craving and because of our ignorance at the time of birth, we formed this mental object of ill will in our mind. And now we've got to break that up. So you're going to need to know the symptoms of each of those 10 fetters. And you learn that throughout the various programs. If you keep learning through all the various courses and programs, by the time you get to the retreats that I teach here, they've been recorded too, so you don't have to be here in Chiang Mai. But I teach all the 10 fetters. We spend an hour to an hour and a half on each individual fetter. I explain to you what it is, what are the symptoms of it, how to eliminate it, and how to know that you've actually eliminated it. So that's what the mental objects are. When we talk about the 4 foundations of mindfulness, it's these 10 fetters, these deeply rooted containers in the mind.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And I have one other question. Once you have gotten to that point for when you have the sensation in the body, and then you're able to cut that off, let it go, so it doesn't turn into a feeling. Like I've noticed that I had this constant fear of teaching, and I think I've spoken to you about it before. We're getting in front of a group of people. The personal existence view, the conceit, worrying about what people are going to think, was overwhelming, and it prevented me from wanting to move forward with teaching. And so I've been really working on eliminating that, and I've gotten to a point where now, when the feeling of fear enters the body and I start to feel that sensation, like it's clear what it is. I know exactly what's going to happen if I continue to let it sort of develop. And I've been able to literally stop it from turning into that feeling of fear. And it's completely gone right now. And it's been this way for about a month. And I don't want to, I'm really intending not to ever let that come back into my mind, that feeling of fear in this particular situation. So I guess I just continue to do what I'm doing. And if I do notice, I notice that in other areas too, that when a feeling does arise or a sensation does arise, it makes it now a little easier to cut off and say, oh, I kind of know where that's going to go. And I'm choosing not to sort of entertain it and flirt with it so that it becomes an actual feeling, and then I have to deal with it. So I guess the question is, does it continue to just get easier as I do this with other areas of my life when it comes to those sensations and feelings developing?
Yeah, because what you're talking about is that you are developing the 4 foundations of mindfulness. For particular situations, you have that 4 foundations of mindfulness. So now applying it in new situations or other situations becomes easier and easier because it's the same methodology, it's the same best practices, it's the Eightfold Path. And essentially what you're doing is you're upgrading this operating system of your mind to now be performing that way in all situations of your day. And now it just becomes easier and easier. But don't be surprised if some of these things go dormant for a while, because you said that it's been a month since you experienced that fear. Don't think that it's gone, right? Don't think that that particular central desire, that personal existence, we don't think it's gone yet. I know that you probably haven't thought that way, but I'll just give you a heads up, because some of these things can go dormant for a good 6 months, and then they can kind of raise their head again. It's kind of like a candle that's going out. It kind of flickers and flickers and flickers, and then, it can kind of look like it's completely out, and then boom, it kind of fires back up again. This is what happens with some of these things in the mind. So that's why you would like to not have this complacency, because when the Buddha talks about complacency, he talks about it all the way to the level of detail that if you have an unwholesome thought in your mind and you do nothing about it, then the mind's complacent. So if you're walking down the street and you notice fear coming up in your mind, if we did nothing about that, that's complacency. So we would like to be vigilant with the mind, where you're always practicing mindfulness, noticing any bodily sensations. And then as you're doing that more and more, yes, it becomes easier because your mind is more matured and you have more of this wisdom under your belt, and the mind is more developed to be able to apply these things in more situations. Okay, so it looks like now maybe Denise, go ahead, ma'am.
Hi, Teacher David. Thank you. My question is with regard to complacency. So I understand from what you've said that ill will is a reaction to not receiving pleasure. So it's connected to the first hindrance. But I wasn't sure how complacency, if complacency is connected to the first hindrance, or if it's just on its own. And then I was curious about if it is a reaction to the first hindrance, or if it's connected to it. I was curious about why some people would be more likely to end up.
Why some people will be more likely to end up. Oh, looks like her internet might have froze up. Okay, maybe what I'll do, because she's probably not here to hear the answer. So what I'll do then is I'll go to Martha or Alberto, and then maybe when Denise comes back, we'll go back to Denise. Go ahead, guys.
Hi, Teacher David. This is Marta. Yeah, I had a question. Okay, so I'm experiencing ill will during my volleyball games at the gym. And when people send the ball out repeatedly, they make mistakes. I get annoyed, then I get irritated, frustrated, in that order. And I don't like to feel like that. And I start making faces. I start going, no. And because it's hard to keep a balance between a sport and not feeling not having these feelings. Mm-hmm. You, on one hand, you want to win and keep the ball up. And on the other hand, that's not correct. Mm-hmm. And if you can give me an advice on how to deal with this, thank you.
Sure, I'll help you. I just would like to share with Denise. Denise, I'm going to come back to you. It looks like your internet connection went out for a little bit, but I'm going to come back to you. So Martha, when you're experiencing that, I remember our conversation that you had a certain player on your team that was very hostile whenever anybody would do anything slightly as a mistake, right? So what your mind can experience is it can experience conditioning, where you're now conforming to what's going on around you. So with this person who in the past, he's probably still around, I would think, is bitter and harsh and hostile to people when they make even the slightest little error, your mind has been conditioned to think that, hey, this is the way we should function, because this person who's maybe seen as a leader on the team is functioning this way. So what I encourage you to do is to go out and play volleyball in situations where it's not with this competitive team, that you go out and just do it for fun. And, with people that don't even really know how to play very well, perhaps. And then you can just see it as a fun and enjoyable thing where you don't have this craving and this central desire for things to happen on the volleyball court a certain way. You're going to need to expose your mind to this. So if you get your Eightfold Path well underway with your breathing mindfulness meditation, your generosity, maybe you're even practicing generosity with some of the members on the team, it'd be wise to bring fruit or bring drinks or something like this. This can be nice to practice generosity. Also, practice your loving kindness meditation before your games, right? Before you go to your game, do your loving kindness meditation and make sure your loving kindness is really full in your mind. And remember your moral conduct of right intention, right speech, right action when you're going into the game, right? So that's when you're playing the competitive games. But then on the side, you can expose your mind to just playing for fun where it doesn't have to always be competitive. And now gradually wear this away.
Okay, thank you, Teacher David.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, so back to you, Denise, if you could start over.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I was saying that I understand that the ill will is connected to sensual desire.
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't sure if complacency was connected to it or if it just is separate.
Yeah.
Complacency was a reaction to not having the pleasure that we seek. And then I was also curious as to, well, it depends on your answer to this question, but then the other.
Oh, looks like we froze up again. Froze up again. Okay. That's unfortunate. We got some impermanence here. So I have to wait for Denise to come back. Okay. Let me just check if we have Facebook or YouTube questions. I don't see anything there. So at the very least, I can stick around with Denise at the end of class and help her with her questions, but I'm going to keep going. And then when Denise comes back in, we'll try again maybe. Okay, so restlessness and worry. This is the fourth hindrance. What this is where the mind is confused, distracted. There's a restless state of mind. It's overactive mind, or maybe you're worried about your own unskillful conduct, like every little misstep that you make. You could be potentially worried about this. If you're noticing this restless, overactive, distracted mind, or you're noticing this worry about your own unskillful conduct, that's where you bring in the enlightenment factors of tranquility, concentration, and equanimity. Those enlightenment factors that I taught you towards the beginning of the class. That's what's going to calm the mind down and bring it down into that peacefulness. Then there's this hindrance of doubt. This is going to hinder you from being able to make progress on the path. What doubt is where you have doubt about the teachings of the Buddha and the ability of them to attain enlightenment. You most likely have doubt, right? Doubt where you lack confidence in the Buddha, the teachings, and the community, your teacher, or your own ability to attain enlightenment. Oftentimes people come to the path with doubt. I know I did. I had a lot of doubt when I came to the path to enlightenment. You might doubt whether this person, the Buddha, actually lived. You might doubt his teachings. You might doubt this community that you're part of and whether or not they'll actually be helpful for you. You might doubt your teacher's ability to help you get to enlightenment, or you might doubt your own ability to get to enlightenment. Well, the way you eliminate your doubt is not through blind belief or faith. The way you eliminate doubt is through investigation and examination of the teachings. By investigating and examining the teachings, you then reflect on them to independently verify them, and then you practice them. You integrate them into your day-to-day life, and as you're making transformations in your mind and in your life, you'll slowly see that these teachings are leading to an improved condition of mind and an improved condition in your life. And now more and more and more, you start eliminating this doubt because you see your mind becoming more joyful, more peaceful. You see situations where you're once angry and frustrated and agitated at different times. And now you don't experience that. That same exact situation, your mind is quite peaceful and joyful in those situations. So you can wear away this doubt through examination of the teachings, through investigation, to acquire wisdom, that you would like to cultivate this wisdom. So essentially what you can do is you can harness this doubt, that you can turn this into an inquisitive mind. That if you have doubt, where you're like, yeah, I doubt all these things, and I teach you up front not to believe any of these teachings, but that's different than doubt. Not believing something is choosing to investigate in order to be able to see the truth. But if you have doubt, which a lot of people do when they first come to the path, this will block you from being able to dig into the teachings. So if you're noticing that you have doubt, then you harness this and you turn it into an inquisitive mind where you now examine and investigate the teachings. And that's what's going to lead to the elimination of your doubt. Because I have 100% confidence in the Buddha, the teachings, this community, my ability to help you get to enlightenment, and your ability to get to enlightenment. But you need to be able to have that 100% confidence. And the only way you'll get to it is through examination of the teachings. So you can harness this doubt and turn it into an inquisitive mind. So these are the 5 hindrances: central desire, ill will, complacency, restlessness and worry, and doubt. And these are the remedies for them. And while these are the 5 hindrances, the Buddha goes deeper into other details about a deeper level of hindrances. But these are the ones that you really need to pay attention to. And they're kind of more like a high level version of what he talks about with the 5 hindrances. But there's one high level hindrance that is like the hindrance of all hindrances. This is what oftentimes people refer to as ignorance or the unknowing of true reality. That's the way I like to refer to it. Confusion, misunderstanding, because this word ignorance is kind of like a derogatory term, and a Buddha, an enlightened being, doesn't refer to people in degrading and diminishing and ways like this. They don't talk down to people and call them ignorant. Like I would never refer to anybody as ignorant, but somebody might lack wisdom, or somebody's making unwise choices, or somebody has confusion or misunderstanding. That's the hindrance of all hindrances. Like one of the biggest hindrances to get to enlightenment is the mind lacks wisdom of the 5 hindrances. The mind lacks wisdom of the 10 fetters. The mind lacks wisdom of the Eightfold Path, the 5 precepts, meditation training, all these other things. Because with that lack of wisdom, the mind will firmly believe that other people are causing you to be angry, that other people are causing you to be frustrated or agitated or annoyed. And as long as you go around with that lack of wisdom, you'll try to change other people. I'm sure you've done this where you've gone out into the world and tried to change other people. That's not going to get you to peacefulness because you're looking in the wrong place. So as long as this lack of wisdom is in the mind, this ignorance or unknowing of true reality, it will hinder you from getting to enlightenment. And that's why from the very beginning of a student learning with me, I teach them don't believe anything. Because what antidotes ignorance or unknowing of true reality is wisdom. You need to be able to get to wisdom where you know the truth with 100% certainty. So that's what you're actively cultivating on the path to enlightenment, is the wisdom of these natural laws and the wisdom of how the mind functions, the wisdom of how the world truly operates. And now you won't struggle and have difficulties as your mind awakens, gaining this wisdom to be able to navigate the world peacefully. So let me know if you guys have any questions on these. I'm going to go back to Denise and see if we can get an internet connection, or we can talk after class too, Denise. Let's see. We have some stuff coming in. Let me see for a moment here. If there's any of this from you, Denise. I'm sure I have another opportunity. Okay. Oh, okay, here we go. Let me just see if you can go again, Denise. So you're asking about this complacency and whether this is coming from central desire. So the answer is that complacency is a result of central desire, but it's not in the same way as like ill will. Like ill will is a result of having not gotten your central desires fulfilled. So now the ill will is arising because it's getting those painful feelings. Complacency is because of the central desire, the mind is holding on. Like say the mind really just likes laying in bed, or it really likes being on the sofa, or it really likes these video games, or maybe it likes this certain TV show that it just keeps watching, or these, certain things that it's doing. So it just sits there on the sofa watching and binge watching these particular TV shows. So now for 3, 4, 5, 10 days, the mind is complacent. This is coming from central desire because the mind is holding on and trying to get pleasure. it's lacking motivation to do other things rather than apply time and effort and energy towards wise decision making to move one's life forward. The central desire is there so strong that the mind is lacking motivation and enthusiasm to go forward in life and making wise decisions. Did you have more than that?
No, that was it. Thank you. Yeah,
Okay.
that makes sense. Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, so let me just check if we have anything anywhere else. Okay, I don't see anything anywhere else. So what I usually do when I teach the 5 hindrances, and I'm coming to a close where this is typically the last class of the group learning program, and then of course we have a meditation on Wednesday. What I like to do as our last class and the last teaching and kind of helping you guys to really go out into the world and practicing these teachings closely is make sure that you understand right mindfulness, because this is the real linchpin. This is the real secret sauce, so to speak. Even though it's not a secret, it's like the secret sauce. This is what's going to help you to transform your mind. You need to be practicing right mindfulness where you have general awareness of the mind at all times, right? That's like what you're working on the first few months of getting on the path to enlightenment, is just having this general awareness of mind. But then you need to go more deeply to practice the 4 foundations of mindfulness, where you're aware of the bodily sensations that are arising as a result of one of your cravings, desires, attachments getting triggered, as a result of having some contact through the eyes, ears, nose, the tongue, the body, or the mind itself, seeing that is agreeable or disagreeable. There's going to be bodily sensations that are occurring. This is the early warning system that's alerting you that discontentedness is about to arise in the mind. And that's where you'd like to cut it off and let it go at the bodily sensations. But that takes time to develop that ability, because if you miss it there, it's going to become a feeling. Now the mind's angry. Now the mind's frustrated or agitated or any other feeling. So if you missed it as a bodily sensation, and it does become a feeling, cut it off there. You'd like to rewire this mind, not allow it to keep experiencing these conditioned feelings. If you don't cut it off as a feeling, then it's going to affect the condition of your mind. For a few minutes, a few hours, a few days, your mind's going to be experiencing this overall condition of mind that's maybe agitated or frustrated or annoyed. You're going to need to be aware of that if that's going on, so that you can transform that and move the mind in the opposite direction. Then you're going to ultimately need to build awareness of the mental objects, where you're aware of these 10 fetters and the 5 hindrances, which 4 of them are actually fetters. You need to be aware of what the symptoms are, so that when they're arising, you can notice it and then you can apply effort to eliminate it. So these 4 foundations of mindfulness are the real secret sauce behind transforming the mind, because this is the process that discontentedness is going to take as it's making its way into your mind. And you would like to block that from occurring so that you can rewire your mind and kind of transform it, not allowing the mind to continue to stay wired that way. So let me know if you guys have any questions on the 4 foundations of mindfulness. And by the way, when we restart the group learning program, I'm going to teach these in detail again as part of that. So let's see. All right, I don't see any questions anywhere. All right. So what I'm going to do is just end class here by thanking all of you guys for joining. Thank you so much for your questions. Thank you for being interested to understand the teachings and practice the teachings. As you guys would like to learn more, there's plenty of opportunity for that. As you guys heard, we're going to be restarting on June 1st. Next week on Sunday is going to be the unofficial restart, where we're going to do getting to know the teacher. You guys can ask any and all questions that you like. We're still going to be doing meditation on Wednesdays. So I'm just going to keep teaching. If you guys would like to keep coming to this program, you can. But then there's also the Pali Canon and English study group on Saturdays that you can attend. And then I have various courses and retreats throughout the year. So there's all those different opportunities for you to learn and grow and develop. Since this is our last class, I'm just going to finish off our class and our entire program of 7 months by giving you guys a huge thank you for those of you guys that have been learning throughout. Anybody who's joined us kind of midway or here towards the end, thank you for being interested to do this inner work and this growth and development, because making your journey towards enlightenment, it's not easy, but it's not difficult either. It takes a lot of real work internally to be introspective. And I really admire people that's willing to do that work, because sometimes people go places and they just kind of worship, or they just kind of do rites and rituals and ceremonies, and they just believe in things. And then later in life, it's really hard for them because they don't have the wisdom of how to navigate the world. It's really easy to show up to that building and do that 1 hour or 2 hours of rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship, but then the rest of their week and their month and their year is very difficult for them. This type of program is very different. It's challenging to show up to these classes each Sunday or each Wednesday. It's challenging to read the book and meditate and learn from the recordings and things like that. But in doing so, the rest of your life is really easy, right? You see how that works? It's like it's really interesting the way that works. So you kind of front load the work by developing your wisdom, and now you're going to see all this improvement as you're gradually making your way closer and closer to enlightenment. So thank you for your dedication and your determination and diligence to learn and practice these teachings. I'd also like to give a big thank you to anybody who supported me in any way. If you were helping me here in Thailand with the temple in terms of sweeping or cleaning or taking out trash, or if you've made any kind of offerings like financial support or helping me with food or clothing or anything like that, helping me to pay for lights and electric and water and all these different things that I need just to sustain my life and to be able to share these teachings, I would like to thank you for your support. Whether it's your time, effort, energy, or resources that you've been sharing to help me, I really appreciate it. There's actually students who help me to edit podcasts and edit videos and things like this. I really appreciate all your help and your support, because your support helps me to help you and to help many people around the world. So thank you so much for all of that. So going forward, I'm going to be teaching on Wednesdays and Sundays, just like always. You guys are welcome to attend all of these classes. You're welcome to reach out to me by private messages or personal guidance. You can ask questions in class, or you can post on our Facebook group, and I'm here to help you. I'm motivated to help you and guide you towards this enlightened mental state. So anytime you need help, feel free to reach out. So thank you again, and perhaps we'll see you guys in one of these future classes. Be well and have a lovely rest of your day. Take care. Sawadee-ka. Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.